Welcome back to 5 Acres Honey Farm. I'm Tara Lynn, and this is my very disorganized bee room. This happens every year. It's pretty much if you're new to beekeeping, you have this ahead of you, and if you are a beekeeper, you're probably familiar with how crazy the season gets, and you're kind of just putting things where you can put them and then organizing later. So later has arrived. It is the winter, and the hives don't really need as much attention right now. So my attention is going to be in here organizing my bee room. And I'll give you kind of a lay of the land, and then I'll get things organized and give you a closer look on how things are stored. I usually use this workbench. This was the previous owner of the house, was a woodworker, and he had a shop in a separate building, but he did have some space down here. So I use this bench along here for like quick grab and go area for material. What I'm really looking for, and I sort of found the right one, is looking for an island right here so that I can kind of like stack things in more places and stuff. So so right now that's what I usually use. That main bench for there is just kind of coming and going. And you kind of see that there's a lot more dropping and going happening. So I've got, some pieces of irrigation from the garden that I was just kind of scrambling for later in the season. I have both my veil and my old veil because I was using my spare for a little bit. And I've got a nuke feeder. I've got a whole super of honey from my other apiary that I'm now feeding to this apiary. I've got tons of empty boxes here of varying sizes from nukes to mediums, and then I have tons of frames behind here. So what I usually do in the winter is I'm going to go through, and the frames that might have a little bit of pollen in them, that maybe have a little bit of nectar, I put those aside, and I'll be using those on the colonies as they start to need more space as it warms up. The other thing that I do, I'll see, well, this one's got honey in it. The other thing that I do is I will check, and I'll try to get this closer for you, is I'm not sure if that's going to focus, but I've got the year written on each frame so that I can cycle out frames that are old. So I don't have any more frames left in here from 2017. If I do see any, I'm going to put them aside, and I'll use them in swarm traps because bees are pretty attracted to old, nasty comb. So any frames that I see as 2017, they really shouldn't be here, but if I find any, they'll be putting in swarm traps. And then some 2018 frames, I'll look for some like nastier kinds, and those I'll probably use for swarm traps too. But pretty much what I'll do is I try to start cycling out about 20% of the comb every 4 years or so. So the 28 frames are going to be on deck for retirement at the end of this year, and then what that means is that I will cut out that comb. I don't process wax, but I might offer it to folks locally if they wanted to filter it. So if you're interested, just leave a comment, send me a message, and then I will either put foundation in or put a starter strip so that in next year they'll build brand new comb. So that way there's always fresh comb coming through that helps minimize spores and other types of contaminants that might have been brought in and developed over time. So I'm going to start getting this organized, and then we'll take a closer look, like I said. As organized as it can be for this time of year. Some things that you probably don't see over here, and by probably I mean that you mainly don't see, are top covers, inner covers, and bottom boards. And that is because I am storing them in another room down here, and they're all lined up, so it's really easy for me to just come in if I'm doing a hive inspection, grab it and go, rather than having to come in here and navigate around all the different frames and boxes. So I know when I'm looking for frames and boxes, I come in here, and if I'm looking for inner covers and top covers and bottom boards, I go to another room. I do have a brand new top cover and a solid bottom board in here. This is for a separate project. I only run screened bottom boards on my hives, but I wanted to create a queen castle because I went to a great session about one a few years ago. So I have the bottom board and this top cover in place to create a queen castle. It was going to be my winter project last year, then it didn't happen, and then my winter project this year was going to be getting a horizontal hive made. And given that it's already early January, I don't think that's going to happen because I would have really wanted that in place before everything's going to start to pick up in about a month, so I don't think that's really enough time to get one built. So basically, maybe next winter we'll do the queen castle and the horizontal hive, but for now, that's what I've got in here. I moved the super full of honey over here. The garbage bag is not to prevent pests from getting in, it's simply because those frames are so overfilled with honey that it drips everywhere, and it's just to prevent more sticky floors than are already in here. These little nuke boxes are really great. I have a separate video about bringing a swarm home in one of these, and now I own two, and I think I'm going to buy two more because they're great to have around. And when I need to bring a few frames out to the apiary, instead of me juggling them and potentially dropping them, it's just really lightweight to carry this plastic nuke box with the frames in them. It's also great for making a quick split, and then you could just get them set up later on. So can't say enough great things about these guys. I moved all of the frames that have nectar and pollen into these two nukes, and these two nukes are actually going to be my swarm trap, but right now they're just storing those frames. So my goal in the next few weeks is to get these frames out into the bee yard and get them used and give them that honey. So then when these boxes are empty, I have my really old, I was worried that was going to happen. I have my really old frames on the bottom, which I have a lot of. This exercise also taught me that 2019, the bees made a lot of great comb. So I have an excess of 2019 comb, which is great. A year from now, that means that's going to be my oldest comb. So I'm going to prioritize getting those frames out into the bee yard this year, so that by the time winter rolls around and they start moving out of some of the boxes, I should be bringing that 2019 in, and I'll use that in my swarm traps the following year. So I've got 2019, only a few in 2020. 2020 was the only year that I've been a beekeeper that I didn't extract any honey. It was a really terrible year, and also a pretty bad year here in the region in North Carolina. So I don't really have too many frames from 2020. I've got some 2021 and 2022s mixed in. I also put a full box of just foundation, so frames that weren't used or frames that I bought last year that I never put out. So I've got 2 boxes of frames ready to go with either foundation or no foundation, a bunch of empty boxes, and then I have probably what you see here. I have the same at my other apiary. So just imagine double this, and that's what I've got stored. I also have on my colonies here, I know that they have a little bit too much space. It is a rainy day today, but tomorrow looks like fairly good weather, so I'm going to do quick inspections and try to pull hopefully a box from each colony. I think one colony won't need it, but the others I could probably pull another box of empty frame in, so that'll help get them into a more condensed space so that they have a smaller space to heat and cool, and then I'll cycle that through the freezer and get it stored in here. So this is winter beekeeping, and I'm also going to bring you in the hives tomorrow so you can take a look and see what the hives look like in the winter. One thing I wanted to show you, which kind of shows a little bit of the good and bad of having a system where you're where you're labeling your comb by the year. So just to give some history with this, I had put out this frame in 2020 and it had been foundation and no one used it. So I brought it back inside. It didn't get used in 2021. And then I ended up putting it out last year. So this is a 2022 frame. And you can see like where that brood area is, that kind of rainbow shape, it's pretty dark. And you can see how fresh the comb is on the edges. So that frame is all the same age, but you can see the color is so different. This is also the same age, and it's beautiful white comb from the Honey Super. Excuse me. So, so you can see if you were just to glance at those frames without looking at the year, they could look very different age, but they're the same age. Similarly, like I've got this 2018 frame. It's fairly dark, right? But still has fairly light edges. But then there's like all these other 2018s are really, really, really dark. Just to show you, you know, also like this is a 2019 one, very light. It really helps to label because you really can't do it by just glancing at the frames. The other thing I wanted to mention too, which is kind of like the inaccuracy of this, is that, for example, this says 2022, but maybe this year in 2023, I don't even use that frame. Maybe it stays in here all year, but I don't have a way of marking it, or I guess I don't have a way yet of marking it to know that, so that in 2024, maybe this frame was only used for one season, and like 4 years from now, I might discard this comb, but it was only used one time. So if you really wanted to be more accurate, you could actually like notate every single year that it's in use, or maybe I've seen other beekeepers put like thumbtacks in here to like make it easier to mark things if they don't have like a marker with them. Personally, I find it easier to have a marker rather than thumbtacks, and I'm also very nervous that I'm going to drop a thumbtack outside and like some animal's going to step on it, or a pet or anything. So I don't really like to use those, but you kind of get the idea. You could also put stickers on here too, of different colors, depending if it's been used or not. But just wanted to show you that. Next day, and I'm going to head over to the hives right now and take a peek inside and see how they're doing. It's so warm out and it sounds like spring. The little tree frogs were just peeping before they just stopped, and it feels like spring. It's really weird for the first week of January. I just looked through the other two hives, and this is my third and final inspection, and they've got plenty of sugar left. Only one hive actually needs a little bit more sugar on top, but I've already removed a box from every single colony, so that'll still be good to cycle through the freezer. And I'm trying to show you the drones that I'm seeing in here, but as soon as I turned the camera on, they disappeared. All right, I saw more at the entrance, and they are here, which is really weird. There's no brood in the colonies, so these drones are coming from someone else's colonies, but there's a bunch in here. I'm very surprised. I've decided this is the colony that I will take out to the mountains in a few weeks. It is the strongest one, and I'm really looking forward to getting them set up out there. They're going to be a great addition. I took one medium off of the one I just showed you, and you can see it's still pretty good size. This one is so teeny tiny. They have a really tiny population. They have plenty of food left. I also took a medium off them, but they're barely covering 2 frames. So hopefully we won't get another crazy cold snap. Otherwise, they look great. This one also, I took one medium off of. They've got a great population, and this one I'm probably going to keep here. It's kind of like the second strongest colony. It just looks great overall, but also strange to see so many drones coming through. So I'm just going to keep my eyes open on all of them just to make sure no one's going to be swarming. But again, didn't see brood in any colony yet. We're probably another maybe 2 to 3 weeks away from the queens from starting to lay. But I am seeing a ton of pollen come in, so that I'm sure will motivate them. But overall, this was a great first inspection of 2023.
and I need to get my swarm traps ready because it's around that time again. So let me know what you're seeing in your apiaries, and I will see you soon.